A few weeks ago, I got this series of shorts by the account Vaguely Mundane in my YouTube recommended.
What do all the subway stations in Glasgow have in common? I mean, besides the smell of damp? Well, they're all getting reviewed by me.
It was essentially just him reviewing every single station on the Glasgow subway and putting it into a tier list, so I thought, you know what, we're short on content, let's plagiarize. And thus I have decided to view all 23 tram stops along the Edinburgh tram network, well, line, but that's besides the point, and put them into a tier list. I will be judging all of these tram stops based off of 4 factors. 1, uniqueness, 2, overcrowding, 3, atmosphere, and 4, onward travel connections. Anyway, I suppose it probably makes the most sense to start at the terminus, so we're starting at Newhaven, which is funnily enough the newest terminus out of the lot of them. The original Edinburgh tram started running in 2014 as a shell of what had originally been proposed. They didn't even complete a full line. They didn't even begin construction on the Newhaven extension of the main line that was proposed way back yonder until 2019, with it not opening until the 7th of June 2023, nearly a full decade after the first stretch of line opened. Overall, Newhaven tram stop is a fairly average tram stop as far as Edinburgh's network, or rather line, goes. However, one thing that's always bugged me with it is the fact that it's 2 split platforms as opposed to an island platform. Usually I tend to advocate for split platforms over an island platform. However, the problem with this is if, say, like for example now, you have 2 trams at both platforms, if you end up getting on, say, I don't know, this tram that's currently on platform 2, and then the one at platform 1 ends up leaving first instead, it can be pretty annoying. I'm gonna be honest, I've done that a lot more times than I'm exactly willing to admit. However, Edinburgh's trams are every 7 to 8 minutes, so it's not like if you end up missing one, you have to wait ages for the next one. So yeah, for that and the fact that the onboard transport connections here, nor the atmosphere are anything particularly special, I'm going to put this in C tier. Next up on the line, we have Ocean Terminal, which links up to the shopping centre of the same name. There isn't really a lot to say about Ocean Terminal, to be honest. It's kind of just ye old island platform next to a bunch of new builds and a half-destroyed shopping centre, though it does link to a lot of buses throughout North Edinburgh, so I'll give B tier. Next up, a short tram ride through the Port of Leith takes us to, oh hey, Port of Leith, who'd have seen that coming? It's far from the busiest tram stop. In fact, I think it's actually the least used tram stop along the entire Newhaven extension. And onward travel connections here are absolutely piss poor. However, you are able to see quite a lot of the docks at Leith from the tram stop. But with that being said, I don't really care about that, so it's going in C tier. Next up, we have the Shore, which is in a really awkward position. It's kind of in the only place it realistically could have gone. However, because of the placement, it means that if, say, more than 3 cars attempt to go down Constitution Street, whilst there's a tram headed airport bound at the platform, then it could cause quite a lot of congestion backing up onto Baltic Street and Bernard Street. Other than that, it's not really particularly interesting though, so I'm just going to give it a C tier. Next up, we have a bit of an oddity on the Newhaven extension of the Edinburgh trams, Through the Walk. The atmosphere here isn't particularly great. However, what's interesting about this is that this is the only island platform, bar Newhaven, on the entire extension. Of course, this is due to space constraints, and while they could have always just, you know, not built a station here, the foot of Leith Walk is essentially like Leith town centre, so not having a tram stop here when tram lines are running right through it would be a bit weird. So the designers thought that the best thing to do here was to make this stretch of Constitution Street tram only, and then just raise the pavement a bit. But yeah, I'm going to put this one in A tier because there's also a lot of good bus connections to a lot of North and East Edinburgh from here. It's probably a bit lazy of me to do these next 2 tram stops together. However, at the same time, Balfour Street and McDonald Road are basically the exact same as each other. Like, I'm currently at McDonald Road, but I could tell you guys I'm at Balfour Street and you'd probably believe me. Balfour Street has this turnaround point here where late running trains can turn around to get the f*** away from Leith, but aside from that, they are literally the exact same, so B tier to the both of them. Alright, and now we have the last station on the Newhaven extension, Picardy Place, which is located right in the middle of the Picardy Triangle. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I think having a tram stop right in the middle of such a massive junction definitely does harm it a bit. But with that being said, I'm still willing to give it an A tier, and my sole reasoning for that is because it's within extremely close proximity to both the Omni Shopping Centre and St James's Quarter Shopping Centre, along with being within proximity to a lot of bus routes to various places within Edinburgh and beyond. So yeah, A tier feels fair. Heading down the line a bit more, we now have what was quite briefly the terminus for the Edinburgh trams, St Andrew's Square. Yes, during the building of the extension of the Edinburgh trams up to Newhaven, the now defunct York Place tram stop, which played between this station here and the tram stop at Piccadilly Place. It was closed and removed to allow for the redesign of the junctions around the Piccadilly Triangle, thus leading to St Andrew's Square becoming, by proxy, the terminus in the city centre. I'm gonna be completely blunt, I think this tram stop's probably deserving of S tier. It's right next to the station's namesake, St Andrew's Square, which is a very pleasant green space in the city centre. You're a less than 2-minute walk away from Edinburgh Waverley Railway Station, which is the end of the East Coast Main Line and one of the biggest rail hubs in the entirety of the United Kingdom. And right at the north end of the platform, you have Edinburgh Bus Station, which provides bus links, again, all over the United Kingdom. Primarily Scotland, but there's a couple bus services down to England as well. So yeah, I would argue this probably belongs in S tier, really. And now we have possibly the busiest tram stop in the entirety of Edinburgh, Princes Street. Yeah, there's no surprises there. It's literally located right in the middle of Edinburgh city centre. Of course it's going to be the busiest. I'm going to put this tram stop in A tier, and the reason it's not in S tier is whilst it does give some pretty stellar views into Edinburgh's old town, and whilst it does provide some fairly good bus connections to basically everywhere in the city, it is really busy at times, to the point where sometimes it can be just completely chock-a-block with naive tourists who try to get the tram to the airport, not realising that Lothian's Airlink 100 is not only about 5 to 10 minutes quicker, but also noticeably cheaper. Next up, we have the West End tram stop, which is situated in between the Athol Crescent and Coates Crescent Gardens in, surprise surprise, Edinburgh City Centre's West End. I'm going to give this stop an A as well, as whilst it is nice having the rather quaint, albeit rather small green spaces on either side of the platform, it doesn't really provide any major transport connections that you can already achieve at either Princes Street or our next station along Haymarket. Hey, speaking of, Haymarket tram stop is arguably the biggest interchange stop along the entire tram line, sitting right next to Haymarket train station, which provides rail links to basically everywhere in Scotland and a large chunk of northwest England as well, with the eastbound platform also housing 2 bus stops for onward travel to places such as Glasgow, Stirling, Edinburgh Airport, Fort William, Oban, Inverness, Dundee, Aberdeen. I could go on. I would honestly argue that Haymarket deserves S tier, as what it does kind of lack in regards to atmosphere, it really does make up for the sheer abundance of onward travel connections you can have. And also, for a station of its importance, I feel like having split platforms as opposed to island platforms at busier tram stops such as Princes Street is an absolute lifesaver. Same goes for our next station. Murrayfield Stadium is a very fit-for-purpose tram stop, and it really irritates me. I mean, I will give it credit for its uniqueness though. It is the only tram stop on the entire network to feature a lift. The massive flight of stairs up to the platform is something you don't really see anywhere else on the network either. It's just that, because of its, relative proximity to Murrayfield Stadium, it is completely rammed whenever there's an event happening here. It's perfectly quiet on any normal day, however, whenever there's anything happening at Murrayfield Stadium, whether it be like Six Nations or a concert, trams are absolutely mobbed all the way to Murrayfield Stadium, and by proxy, so are the platforms here. And the reason the trams and by proxy the platforms are completely mobbed is because everyone opts to take the tram here because of the convenience of there being a tram stop literally right across the road from the stadium. Meanwhile, the closest buses are like a 5-minute walk away from here, and God forbid people have to walk that much. They could die. So yeah, I think because of how mixed I am on it, I'm gonna settle for a B tier. Gonna try keep these next 3 tram stops relatively brief, as they are all basically the exact same, just with key factors differentiating them all. Ballgreen lies right next to the North Clyde line, Fife Circle line, Edinburgh to Glasgow via Falkirk line, and Edinburgh to Dunblane line, so it's very good for train spotting. Saughton tram stop is the only tram stop to lie on what was the Edinburgh Fastlink, a guided busway opened in 2004 running between Stenhouse and Broomhouse before closing in 2009 to allow for the construction of the Edinburgh tram. And Bankhead sucks. Okay, that's a bit harsh, but at the same time, there's really just nothing to say about it. It's the only tram stop along this stretch that wasn't originally a station on the Edinburgh-Glasgow Railway in the 20th century. But other than that, there's nothing. So yeah, I'm giving these 3 B tier, and that's on the generous side considering the material that we already have in C tier. Now for a bit of a step up, we have Edinburgh Park Station, one of the 2 tram stops serving Edinburgh Park. It not only connects onto the National Rail Station Edinburgh Park for travel to places such as Livingston, Glasgow, Falkirk and Stirling, but it also connects onto Hermston Gate Retail Park, which is one of the largest retail parks in all of Edinburgh. So I'm willing to give this an A tier. Edinburgh Park Central is my favourite tram stop on the entire network. And it was really difficult to not just instantaneously put it into S tier. Here's the thing, whilst I do really like the vibe of the area around the tram stop, there aren't a lot of transport connections within a 5-minute walk by like one bus stop. And because a lot of people aren't just going to need to come here during the daytime, it's completely dead. And to be honest, bar the occasional commuter every now and then, there's not really a huge need for it to exist. So as much as I want to give it S, I feel like anything above an A just feels overly biased. And whilst this is my own personal ranking, I feel like I do need to bring some logic into this. Next up we have the Gyle Centre, which isn't a particularly interesting tram stop. Its only real purpose is to serve, surprise surprise, the Gyle Shopping Centre, which it does perfectly well, but that's kind of all it does, so I feel like I'm gonna do B tier. And now we have Edinburgh Gateway, which is actually the newest station on the original stretch of track to open. Unlike all the other tram stops on the original stretch, which opened on the 31st of May 2014, this tram stop didn't open until the 10th of December 2016 to coincide with the opening of the network rail station that's also held within this building. Honestly, as big as this building may look, Edinburgh Gateway is really not a very noteworthy tram stop. It only really exists to connect onto the Fife Circle line. And in my personal opinion, I feel like Edinburgh Gateway Station just kind of falls quite short of what it was meant to achieve. Okay, well, it does what it was meant to achieve fairly well. It's just, as an interchange, it's not hugely noteworthy. Like, if you go into the main hall of the ScotRail station, most of the time, there's never more than about 2 people in there. And it gets a train service, like if I had to guess, on average every 12 to 15 minutes. So now there is this good rail tram interchange, but at the same time, I feel like most people are probably just going to stay on the train to Haymarket and swap onto the tram there, or hell, get off the train at Inverkeithing and swap onto the Stagecoach 747 if they want to go to Edinburgh Airport. So yeah, in concept, you'd think this station would be at least an A tier, but in execution, it doesn't really exceed anything above a B. Probably the least urban tram stop on the entire network. Gogarburn is in a very similar camp to Edinburgh Park Central for me, albeit to a lesser degree. And I think the sole reason that it's to a lesser degree is for the sole reason that vehicles whiz past you like 50 miles an hour on the AA, which is literally right next to the tram stop. It's right behind my camera, actually. But yeah, I think the only reason this tram stop actually exists is because of the headquarters for the Royal Bank of Scotland, which are situated a roughly 5-minute walk away from here. You know, the nice thing about there being so much green space within such proximity to this tram stop is it's very easy to just at the top of your lungs and no one will care. Aside from maybe concerned drivers coming into Edinburgh. I'll give it B tier. And for our penultimate tram stop, we have Ingliston Park and Ride, which as far as park and rides go, is actually pretty good. The tram stop is a bit away from the central kiosk, which could confuse people who haven't used the park and ride before trying to get a tram. But with that being said, it still works well enough, and considering that they could have always just made it run straight from Gogarburn to the airport, I think it's probably better than it serves the park and ride. A tier. And last but not least, we have Edinburgh Airport. I forgot to write a script for this bit, so I'm gonna have to freehand. The tram stop at Edinburgh Airport is very over-advertised, I will say. There's an entire canopy over the tram stop, and all along the sides it just says Trams to Say Centre on it. But yeah, I think to finish off the tier list, I'm going to say that this belongs in A tier. And on that note, that's all 23 tram stops. I would like to thank Vaguely Mundane for the idea, and I would like to apologize as well for plagiarizing it. But yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hype, whatever. I don't know, I'm not really as in tune with these sort of things nowadays. But yeah, until next time, I've got 2 videos on screen, so if you want to click those, then do that. But till next time, I'm going to get going, so take care of yourselves.